Okay, you're listening to the Social Impact Show with me, Sam Marshall. And what we do, as you know, between just you and I, it's a bit of a secret. Mondays to Fridays, 9 to 12, we talk about positive stories. And I'm always happy to continue that conversation. Every Monday at this time, as you know, it's a regular feature. We do something called Tipping the Scale. And joining me on the line now is Bernadette Boulé. Bernadette, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Sam. I'm good. And yourself?
Yeah, I was just telling our listeners that this is the thing that we do every Monday. So all we do is on a Monday is educate. We're on this journey together. It's called Tipping the Scale. And what Bernadette does is we learn about ESG. We learn about the terminologies. We learn about how we can understand what it means when we talk about ESG principles, when we talk about good governance principles, when we talk about the just energy transition. Bernadette, how are you doing?
I'm good, Sam. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Really, it's exactly what we do on Tipping the Scale.
Yeah, and last week we were talking about, which was quite interesting. We had this big word that we unpacked last week, but we've been doing it every week. What's the big idea this week?
That's correct. This week we have a term that I wanted to actually move away. I played around with what it's normally known to what writers are really trying to call it out for what it is, especially in the ESG space. So it's fish populations or fish stocks. And fish stocks refer to the specific population of fish within a particular area. But fish stock is also a group of same species, and they are more like the geographic location and how we as individuals consume them. So there's an element of commercialization around it. But the discussion is always to say that are fish made for us to consume, or are they part of the environment? And they're a critical element of life, but it's also important for us to also adhere to some policies and laws in place to be able to safeguard these important players in our ecosystem, right?
Yeah, and I think what the important part for us is, and what we're trying to do every week here, is to get ordinary South Africans to understand what are these terms. You see them in the news, you hear them see them in newspapers, hear them on radio, but what does it actually mean for you and I in the street when we talk about fish stocks, or we talk about the just energy transition, or we talk about GEP development? And I think that's why I love this journey, because I think we're all learning together.
100%. So fish stocks are the critical concept of sustainable fishery management. As we know, a huge population does depend on fisheries and fishing for sustenance, but also for commercial use. But also it's important for us to draw limits and be able to draw a limit in terms of catch limits, quota systems, and marine protected areas, just to ensure that fishing does not exceed the rate at which fish can reproduce and maintain healthy populations. Now, South Africa has been a leader in being able to implement some laws to protect these. And we enacted a few key laws to safeguard this, and starting with the Marine Living Resources that was enacted in 1998. And it's the cornerstone of fishery management, and it allocates fishing rights, but it also enforces catch quotas and creates marine protected areas, so to prevent overfishing and habitat destruction. Because when you think of fish stocks and when you think of the fish population, it is such a critical element to be able to maintain our sea life, right? So complementing the law that was enacted is the National Environment Management and its Integrated Coastal Management Act, and focuses on the broader protection of coastal ecosystems, ensuring that fisheries are managed responsibly as part of integrated coastal development. So as we consider fishing, and as much as we all love our little hakes and our fish, it's quite important for us to consider how this plays out in terms of our environment and protecting our environment and our safe spaces.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm from Cape Town. I don't know why you had to say the word hake. That's exactly what I'm going to have for lunch. This has triggered me. Okay, Bernadette, we're going to get back to you as we wrap up, because you're going to tell us what the big ESG events are in South Africa, where those that are interested can go. But in the meanwhile,
100%.
we've got Mark Berry, who joins me now in the studio. And he's the sales and marketing executive for Safripol. And what they've done is they've driven this massive toy campaign in partnership with the Angel Network. Mark, thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate you.
Much appreciating you having me, Sam. A privilege to be here. And from what you've explained about what you're doing, that's you need an accolade. Well done.
Thanks, Mark, and well done to what the work. Well done for the work that Safripol does as well. But very quickly, for those that don't know, our audiences, in this segment, we're all about educating, getting people to understand more about brands and the work that they do. Tell us a little bit about Safripol.
Okay, so Safripol is a local company, number one. We're not a global company. We're a proudly South African company. We actually manufacture plastic granules. So we've got two manufacturing sites. One is down in Durban. That makes our PET. PET goes into your cold drink bottles, all your carbonated soft drinks bottles and your water bottles and all that kind of stuff. And we've got another plant down in Sasolburg whereby we make high-density polyethylene and polypropylene. So we actually make the plastic itself. We sell those to what we call converters. Converters are people that actually make the finished goods. So, for instance, you might see these plastic pipes at the side of the road. You might see agricultural shade netting, all that kind of stuff. Your lunchbox, food packaging, all that type of stuff. So those are my customers.
Tim, when Mark talks about lunchbox, he's talking about your skaften, one that you that you take to.
Okay, there's already two comments about lunch. Getting hungry.
So you could just say at the end of the day, Mark, this is what we do for a living. We have all the processes in place. We care about the environment. But I know, and I always argue this with people when I have dinner and lunch, invite them around a braai. People don't understand how much corporates really think about the impact they have on the environment and how they are constantly working on trying to minimize that impact.
Sam, you're 100% correct. I mean, I'm not allowed to talk on anybody else's behalf, but I can talk on Safripol's behalf. And I mean, we spend a huge amount of effort behind the scenes making sure that we have our license to operate. So socially, we need a license to operate. And that means we need to be responsible opposite the environment. We need to be responsible opposite our employees. We need to be responsible opposite the country that we live in and government and that type of stuff. And so it's a cornerstone of everything that we do all day. We've got dedicated resources looking after this. It's hugely important to us. And I think also more importantly, we recognize that without doing these type of things, there won't be a Safripol in the years to come, or South Africa won't look the same way, or as many people won't be employed in that type of stuff. So it's we spend a lot of effort on this.
But I also think, Mark, it's the environment we're currently living in. The environment we're living in dictates that not only do you care about the environment, and obviously the ESG principles are important for you. There are massive sustainability goals globally. You have signed agreements globally that impact us locally. But I almost also believe that as an organization at the moment, you are not willing to work with organizations and other businesses that don't reflect your values. And so there's pressure, whether that's directly or indirectly, to make sure that the entire community adheres to the value chain.
Yeah, Sam, you're 100% correct. I mean, there's a lot of people that put a significant amount of investment in time and resources and money and all the rest of it to try and make sure that the world is a better place at the end of the day. So if you truly, in our minds, if you truly believe in something, if you say yes on the one hand, you've got to be able to say no on the other hand. So there is behaviors, for instance, particularly in the plastic space, and we recognize this, that there's certain behavioral elements in terms of dealing with plastic that end up with plastic ending up in the environment, which is not great for anybody.
Not for the environment, not for wildlife, not marine life, and even the microplastics that makes its way into the animals and then back on our plates.
Correct.
You guys recently, and I thought this was really clever, because I've seen the billboards, I've driven past them, I've seen the kind of work from a Safripol perspective, and Bernadette Boulé, who, the lady's voice that you heard, created this segment with this idea that we needed to educate people around the environment and kind of teach them these technologies. But you guys recently partnered with the Angel Network, and it's your toy campaign. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay, so thank you, Bernadette, first and foremost, for the opportunity. But that's great that she brought this up. So, as you said earlier, there's a lot of misinformation. And early on, when we conceptualized the toy campaign, we recognized that there's not a lot of awareness as to the benefits of plastic or what is plastic. So, for instance, a significant amount of your car is plastic. Your cell phone's predominantly plastic. Your laptop's predominantly plastic. All your clothes are plastic.
One version of plastic. Because there's many versions.
Many
of plastic.
versions. So at that stage, it was pre-COVID. There was a big war on plastic waste,
yes,
if you like.
Yeah.
Which we support, by the way. We don't want plastic waste in the environment. But the counter to that is we also need to then educate people to say, okay, well, what is a so-called good plastic? And you brought out the concept of good and bad. So, what is a good plastic? And also linked to that is a behavioral component. So it's like anything. It's like a car. Cars there's beneficial attributes to a car. It gets you around safely. It gets you to your destination. However, if you're driving the thing under the influence, that's irresponsible behavior. So we recognize that there's a behavioral element in terms of dealing with what it is that you actually are dealing with. And in our space, plastic. And plastic in the environment is not where it's supposed to be. Plastic is one of the most recyclable products around. Okay, it really is significantly recycled globally and particularly in South Africa. And if you think about it, how does plastic end up in the environment? It's through behavior. Okay, it doesn't get there by itself.
I've never seen a plastic bag walk out of a shop. I'm going to land here. Somebody doesn't dumps it somewhere or doesn't understand the attitude around recycling or
So we started this campaign to say, okay, there's plastic in practically everything. So you must don't think about a plastic. Let's carry a bag, for instance, in the environment.
And a lot of us do, by the way.
Yeah. So it's in yourself. Will you give up your cell phone? Will you give up your TV? Will you give up your laptop? The answer is probably not, but that's plastic. And then the concept came also linked to CSI initiatives and the likes in terms of educating people about toys. So now most toys, if you think about it, are made out of plastic. There's very little toys that are made out of glass or metal. Most of them are plastic, okay? And in this concept, and you would have talked about this on your show, I'm sure, there's recycle, reuse, repurpose, reduce, and that type of thing. So if you think about it, if you a young person and you've had kids and that type of stuff, what tends to happen is you end up with a whole lot of toys that your kids have used over the years. They've outgrown the thing.
I currently have that problem at the moment.
We all have. We all have. Okay, and what's happening with those toys? They're sitting in the cupboard. Okay, not doing anything. So the concept behind the toy campaign originally was, by the way, toys are plastic. Okay, and then going to the behavioral side of that is to say, okay, instead of them just sitting there in your cupboard, reuse it. Because if you're giving it to another kid, they don't have to buy a toy. So reuse it, possibly repurpose it. And that's how the concept came about in terms of the toy campaign.
Yeah, and it's clever, and I think it's clever because what we tend to do is, and I found this, especially with our friends. So I've got 3 boys. The girl is well past toys now, but the 3 boys are still in that age range where they want to do toys. And one of the big things we started doing was, if a wheel falls off, instead of it just leaving in a corner and dumping it, is find another wheel, fix it. And what's happening now is that a lot of our friends are having kids, and they are very happy with kind of skateboards that they won't buy. And so we've kind of found a way to pass it along, number one. And the other thing that made my 7-year-old son ask me the other day, could we go to an orphanage and drop off all the working toys?
That is absolutely stunning news. But I mean, if you think about it, and that's fortunate the way that I like the way the world's evolving. There's also a trend amongst I've got older daughters now, so they also passed the toy stage, but they're not past the laptop and the cell phone stage,
which is other toys.
Okay, the other toys. But they're into the clothing, and I mean nowadays a whole lot of people want to go and use repurposed clothing or use second-hand clothing. It's quite hip.
It's very trendy. Yeah. I was going to ask you this question because we don't understand the process or the life cycle of a kind of a toy. Like if I just think of a toy in the environment, what does that life cycle look like? Are we talking about 10, 20, 30, 40 years it's still there? Or?
So plastics, it's what's good for, a good attribute is also a negative attribute often. So plastics are quite durable. So if you don't reuse it or have a plan for it, obviously it's going to sit in the environment. Okay, and that's not great. So the life cycle breakdown of plastics is quite extensive, and they just mustn't end up in the environment. That's one of the things. So they're quite persistent. Yeah.
But I love this idea of what you started off by saying, Mark, that it's a behavior. The reason you're seeing a plastic bag in your environment, or you see all these plastics floating around, it's not the plastic that made its way there. It's a human being that has contributed negatively to the environment you're currently in. So if you're surrounded by plastics, dirt, that's human being, that's behavior.
Yeah, and Sam, to your point, most of it's conscious behavior, not subconscious behavior. You actually purposely are throwing it in the environment, or behaving or using it in such a manner that it ends up in the environment. You knowingly do this.
Yesterday, if it wasn't for my children, I saw a person throw something out of a window.
Yeah.
And you know those YouTube videos where the guys pick it up and they throw it back in the car? I wanted to do that yesterday, but my 7-year-old son was in the car, so I didn't create an issue, because that irritates me to no end. That you cannot wait till you get to your destination and offload it into a bin, that it has to go out of your window.
Correct.
And I think it's horrible behavior. Talk to me about some of the beneficiaries from this relationship between yourself and the Angel Network.
Okay, so Sam, one of the interesting things about this campaign that's been going on for 5 years now. This is its 5th year, okay? So we've partnered with the Angel Network right from the beginning, and they've been, but you know, the Angel Network don't just do toys. You know, they out there with feeding schemes and with assistance, and they very organized.
It's almost a great relationship, because if you have these toys, they are in the community dealing with those beneficiaries.
Yeah, and talking to some of the, quite a number of the Angel Network people, is when we introduced the toy campaign, they actually liked it as an add-on to what the work that they were currently doing, because a lot of the work that they were currently doing was more basic in terms of getting food and, you know, not much of the joy side. You know, it was more subsistence orientated. So through the Angel Network, as I say, we've been doing this for 5 years now, and I'll just give you a little bit of an idea if I can. In the first year, we collected 3,520 toys.
Mark,
I do.
I love numbers.
Cool. Okay,
I
got cool numbers for you now. So in the first year we did 3,520 toys. That was in 2020. The next year 35,000 toys. Then 22, 50,000 toys. 23, 55,000 toys, and in 2024 last year we did 67,000 toys. Okay.
Wow.
But what I want to just say here, Sam, and this is one thing that I've also got to consciously say myself, because we like to say how many toys did we collect, right? So 67,000 toys is a lot, but that's not the point. The point is 67,000 kids got a toy, mostly for Christmas, that would not have otherwise got a toy. So you've got to think it in terms of the beneficiaries. 67,000 kids, and the bulk of that is through that distribution goes through Angel Network. So well done to Angel Network.
Yeah, shout outs, kudos to the Angel Network. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, to our listeners. I think we take it for granted because we are broadcasting in the richest square mile in all of Africa with quite an impressive listenership. But there are kids that have never had toys, and this is sometimes their very first time owning something, and that look of joy on their face when they receive it, that's absolutely priceless.
Sam, you're 100% correct. I mean, when you go out to these donation events, and obviously you can't attend them all, but we do go out to some of them, and to see these kids that haven't ever had a toy in their lives before, it's something else. We heard a story from last year where a 13-year-old boy came up to one of the Angel Network staff and actually was in tears because it was at 13 was the first toy he had ever received. And I mean, that's heart-wrenching. But you must see how appreciative the kids are. The sense of appreciation for something, for a toy that was actually just sitting in the back of your cupboard, doing nothing, is actually quite important.
I'm fortunate in this way, Mark, that I get to every day I get to meet guys like you. I get to meet 35 of you every week. And for the last 12 years, I've worked with so many brands as they do reveals, as they go and fix stuff, because we run a news platform that only focuses on positive news. So I completely agree with you. Bernadette wanted me to play this for you because this is how she got to hear about the amazing work that Safripol does.
So a few months ago, I bumped into the amazing boxes that I saw at Cresta Mall. I had been looking for and thinking about it for a while as to what do I do with my son's old toys. And when I saw these amazing boxes that had Safripol and Angel Network, I was so excited to see that I could donate the toys that I have at home to disadvantaged young people, and it would be refurbished and repurposed for that exact cause. So I really got packing, and in January, I was able to deliver some of these toys to the offices at the campus in Bryanston, and really wanted to get insight as to Safripol's work in the toy campaign. Thanks.
Yeah, she was absolutely blown away. Came across one of your boxes and was just taken by this idea that you guys have thought about the kind of the value of toys in our community and kind of repurposing them, and that must be amazing to hear.
Sam, that was absolutely stunning to hear. It's actually quite emotional to hear, actually.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about our campaign. So in the beginning, it was obviously, it was not as prolific as it is now. But as the campaign has grown, we've actually had more and more people approach us and the Angel Network to actually ask, how do we participate in terms of refurbishing toys, packaging toys, and that type of thing, and aiding with the collection and the distribution of toys.
That's amazing.
So one of the stories, if you don't mind, Sam, me sharing, is through the Lion Network. A couple of old age homes have come on board in the last 2 years, and what they do is they actually give all the toys that are collected to the people in the old age home, and they go through it and make sure the batteries are in it, and that it's clean, and that all the puzzle pieces are there, and all that kind of stuff. So it's becoming more than just the participation in the program is becoming broader than just the beneficiaries of the toys.
And it's no longer a Safripol initiative; it's a community initiative now. Like, it's taking ownership. People are finding value in different aspects of this campaign.
Sam, I love the way you say that, because the intention was for it never to be a Safripol initiative. It was supposed to be a community initiative, and it was supposed to be as far-reaching as possible. So, I'm pleased you picked up on that. Thank you.
But if you're reaching like what 65,000 toys collected last year, I know you're saying it's 65,000 kids that are happy, but I also think it's 65,000 items that are not in our environment, polluting our environment.
Or in your
cupboard. That's amazing.
Or in your cupboard.
Or in your cupboard, for that matter. Mark Berry, thank you very much for chatting to us. Love it. Where can people go? We've got an amazing audience. Where can they find out more about Safripol and the work that it does?
Okay, so everything's on our website. So there's all the backstories and videos and all that type of thing are on our website at safripol.com.
Yeah, simple as that.
Simple as that.
Bernadette, as we wrap up this conversation, I want to get back to you. What are the big ESG events for this week that we can look forward to? Okay. Bernadette has muted herself. She's doing that thing that everybody does when they think they're being live. Bernadette,
Thanks so much,
as we wrap up
Sam.
very quickly, what are the big ESG events that people can look out for this weekend?
This one is actually in June, but I think it's a nice way for us to plan ahead. For the first time in 27-year history, the Africa Energy Forum will be hosted in Cape Town in South Africa from the 18th to the 21st. And it's really set against the iconic Table Mountain, and it has become Africa's most active energy development center. So it's making it an ideal location for this event. And the theme is Africa United. So it will bring together African stakeholders to present a unified message to the world about the continent's energy needs and priorities. And what I love about it is really that Africa United element about it. You know, African countries need to also take an initiative in this, and for it to be hosted in South Africa, we have no excuse but to go. So it's going to be, it's also aligned with South Africa hosting the G20 And the discussions will also allow us to influence global energy policy, amplifying Africa's voice in the international arena. So for anyone keen, please have a look at the Africa Energy Forum, and that's going to be hosted from the 18th to the 20th of June. The nice thing about it is that they're also going to be having a powerful collaboration with young people and promises to be a defining moment in shaping Africa's energy future. So please save the date in Cape Town, 18th to the 20th of June.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for another stellar program. This is what we do. We're on this journey together to learn to be better South Africans, better Africans. And it's a weekly feature called Tipping the Scale. Bernadette, until next week, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy your week.
Thank you. And Mark Berry, thank you very much for coming in and having a chat to us about the work that Safripol does. This is the job that we do. Once we know, once we are educated, we make better choices. So thanks to Mark Berry and to Safripol for the work that they do. Go and find out more about the toys. I know you've got a cupboard full of toys. So maybe what we should do is let's try and help Safripol get to 100,000 toys this year. That would be mind-blowing. Can you imagine having a chat to Mark again and says, we've gone past the 100,000 mark. Anyway, that's a wrap for our show. Paul and Abby is next. Remember, Mondays to Fridays, it's all about being good and doing good. So from us, it's a wrap. Chat to you tomorrow.